start the meeting, and we have a quorum. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. First item is any changes to the agenda. Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Anyone from the public wish to address the board on any items not on tonight's agenda? Do we have any public? I don't hear any, so we'll move on to action on the consent agenda. Did we have any?
I move approval of the minutes with any edits from board members. This is Jeff.
Second.
So I guess we're going to move on to. I guess we're going to move on to approval of minutes.
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeff. Did you get that, Amy? Okay. Any corrections or edits to the minutes? Hearing or seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? Actually, we'll do it the other. Yeah. Why don't you just raise your hand or say aye if you're in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? John, anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Next item, we have Secretary Flynn with us. We're happy to have him. Welcome, Secretary Flynn. And I don't know, Charlie, if you want to make any intro or just let Joe run.
Can always do that, but I will say thank you to the Secretary and the august members of his staff who he's brought along with him. Good to see Michelle and Jesse and Matthew and Amy, and did I miss anybody? But thank you all for attending, and Secretary Flynn, thank you. We're kind of curious as to how the budget is looking and what that means for the agency and for projects in Chittenden County and any other topics you'd like to discuss. So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Thank you, Mike, and good evening, everybody. I just first want to thank you for the opportunity to meet this evening. The partnership between the CCRPC and VTrans provides a valuable framework for understanding and collaboratively responding to the multimodal transportation issues in Vermont's most populous region. Over the years, this relationship has supported the agency's ability to be responsive to the regional needs and to comprehensively plan for investments which support the goals and objectives of the Chittenden County Regional Plan and needs of the communities. We have benefited from the technical expertise of your staff, which I thank you for, and the leadership role your organization has long held in the region. I'm here tonight with our VTrans representatives, as you've mentioned, to our board, Amy Bell, Matthew Langham, along with Jesse Devlin, the head of our project development team, and of course, your longtime colleague, Michelle Boomhauer, who is, we pirated away from you to lead our division of policy planning and intermodal development about 5.5 years ago. I hope to provide you the budget overview that you mentioned, Charlie, and then the team and I will provide brief updates on key projects in the region, and after that, we'll entertain any questions that you may have. Let me start by pointing out that the fourth quarter of fiscal 20 presented challenges from a budgetary perspective in light of the coronavirus pandemic. There were modest project delays, the deployment of staffing to COVID-19 related missions in support of State Emergency Operations Center, and reorganization of our working environment to protect our workers and the consulting and contracting communities which we rely on to deliver projects. For much of the COVID response in the early months, the Agency of Transportation directed almost 200 people every day dedicated only to the state's COVID response. So they were not focused on their otherwise previous missions. As of this week, that number remains at 54 daily. For fiscal 20 year end, the Transportation Fund ended the year with a $21 million revenue shortfall, which was less than early COVID predictions forecasted. A total of $45 million in appropriation balances were reverted at the end of the year. This covered the fiscal 20 revenue shortfall of $21 million and allowed for a balance of approximately $24 million to be available for our fiscal 21 full year budget. At year end fiscal 20, T fund balances were reverted to avoid potential of having to tap the stabilization reserve. The Transportation Infrastructure Bond Fund ended the year with a $1 million revenue shortfall, which was less than early COVID predictions. A total of $1.8 million in TIB appropriation balances were reverted at the year end as well. State fiscal 21 budget that was recently passed. The full year transportation budget is $656 million. I point out that it's the third largest in the agency history, only surpassed by the 2 years following Tropical Storm Irene. This budget was made possible largely by the massive year-end reversions in the transportation and TIB funds. Year-end balances were higher than normal due to COVID-related delays and the addition of federal coronavirus relief funds, the CRF money, and FEMA funds, which covered some of our activities. Some of the highlights in the fiscal 21 budget are $107 million for paving, making this the 7th consecutive year in excess of $100 million for paving. $104 million for bridge programs on the state, the interstate, and town highway systems. Because of timing issues and revenue uncertainties, the town highway structures and town highway class 2 roadway grant programs were paused for for state fiscal 21. But fiscal 21 budget included a one-time supplemental distribution of $7 million to town highway aid, which is more flexible to towns to use. The reason we did it that way was we had no idea what the situation was with towns. Would they be able to meet the match required for the other type of grant activities? I also would point out that we fully funded projects that were already underway. So all we did was cease doing any new grants during fiscal 21. The money is currently in the process as we speak of being distributed to municipalities. I believe that begins next week. The budget also includes one-time supplemental investments of $2.4 million for paving and leveling, $500,000 for maintenance and mowing, $500,000 additional for public transit, and $1 million additional for electric vehicle incentives. On the revenue side, cumulative year-to-date transportation fund revenues currently exceed the August consensus revenue forecast by approximately $2 million, or 3%. Transportation Infrastructure Bond Fund, or TIB, revenues are currently short of the forecast by approximately $150,000. We're cautiously optimistic, and I would emphasize cautiously, that these revenue trends may continue. But I think, as we all know, predictability during this time is a huge uncertainty. Budget development for fiscal 22 has been underway for some weeks. This week, the administration distributed budget development instructions. We are aiming to deliver a budget that is level funded through fiscal 21. That has to be in late October, first draft in late October. On the federal side, Congress recently passed a one-year extension to the FAST Act through September of 2021. So we do expect federal funds to be approximately equal to the federal fiscal year 2020. The Federal Transportation Appropriation Authorization is operating on a partial year continuing resolution that runs through December. At this point, I know there are a lot of questions. Before I turn it over to Jesse, I just want to emphasize the work that the entire team at AOT, both DMV and VTrans, did. When I talk about 200 people a day, the extra work that the agency has undertaken, like people all across Vermont state government, certainly, but on a daily basis, VTrans is delivering medical supplies around the state of Vermont, just to mention one thing that we do that's sort of behind the scenes. And also, to the work that the budget team has done. When we were in the early weeks of April, we were looking at a year-end, at that time, a fiscal 20 year-end final quarter shortfall of about $40 million. And we were looking at what we thought was a fiscal 21 shortfall of about $42 million. And when you think that in the span of 15 months, we were facing the possibility of an $82 million revenue shortfall, that is almost unimaginable. But it wasn't quite as bad as what early forecasts might have indicated. And only through the efforts, tremendous efforts of a phenomenal team, were we able to, I think, really come out of this much better than we thought. That is in no way claiming mission accomplished. We have some very difficult times ahead, and quite frankly, 23 may be even more difficult because we seem to, look for one-time funding and every stone that we can turn over to have helped us for 20 and 21, and as we build 22. So it remains a challenge, but I believe that this team is certainly up to the challenge. And at that point, though, I think I'll turn it to Jesse, and we'll go through the rest of the program, and then we'll be available for any questions that you might have.
Right. Good evening, everyone. As you can see, I am hiding in my basement, and I am hopeful that it will be the quietest place in my house. So I'm crossing my fingers on that. But we will see. So I was asked here tonight to kind of talk through some of the CircAlt projects, to provide a brief update on how things are going, any challenges, and where we stand kind of as on the program as a whole. So I have updated the Excel spreadsheet that we've historically looked at, which includes the project, the phase, along with initial estimate, current estimate, and a profile that indicates where specific phases might fall from a fiscal year perspective. So, Mike, I don't know if you're able to give me control so that I can show a screen, but that could be good to.
I think I'll defer that to Charlie since he's in control. Okay. They don't let me do that kind of stuff.
Jesse, did that work?
Let's see.
Something's working. There you go.
All right. So can everyone see the screen I have up?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So I guess before I jump into that, just for those of you who do not know me, my name's Jesse Devlin. I'm the program manager for the Highway Safety and Design section at VTrans. In short, our group is really one of two design arms within the agency. Our group includes paving, traffic, and roadway type projects. So understandably, when the CIRC alternative projects were defined, a fair number of those, really all but the municipally managed ones, came to my group. And we've been working on those for, the different phases and the different projects for the years since. A good portion of these projects have also been identified as municipally managed with oversight from our Municipal Assistance Bureau. Sue Scribner is the director of that group. Unfortunately, she could not make it tonight, but we did get the chance to touch base prior to tonight. So I have a brief update on those projects as well that I'll be able to share. And if there are questions on those, at least bring back to the appropriate people. So I guess with that, my thought is to really just kind of step through this spreadsheet, briefly talk about the projects, really high level, just kind of how things are going and where we anticipate kind of either having them funded or where we see them in the future. So I will get right into it then with probably our most high profile CIRC alternative project. We have the Colchester 5600 print 14 job. And that is the diverging diamond interchange at exit 16. And this project design is effectively complete. And prior to advertisement, we will need a right-of-way clearance. We need to acquire rights in order to construct the job. And we are currently waiting on the courts to schedule our necessity hearing, which will be needed on this project as we were not able to reach agreements with all property owners. And the courts, unfortunately, have been pretty backed up with COVID and things like that. So we do not have a date for that hearing yet. And we are actively still in litigation on a couple of environmental items for this job. The current schedule we're predicting is construction activities, major construction activities beginning in calendar year 22. The next project on the list is Essex 5400 Prince 7, and this is actually the project at Vermont 2A, Susie Wilson Road and 289, and this project has successfully been completed. The next project on the list, Essex 5313. This is the Crescent Connector project, and it includes the construction of the new road, Crescent Connector, work on railroad highway crossings, as well as Railroad Street. And the intended schedule for this project, I know they've been investigating some funding sources for the rail highway crossing work, and that is ongoing. The intent is that that work would be completed this upcoming season, and the remainder of the job, which is more of the reconstruction type work, is still progressing through the right-of-way process and would follow shortly after the rail crossing work. The next project on the list is Williston 5500 Print 12. This is the project at Vermont 2A, James Brown Drive, along with some additional safety improvements and bike ped facilities along 2A. And this project as well has been substantially successfully completed. We have a transit project, which was for Vermont 15, 2A, US 2, including shelters. And this has been funded and continues to be funded. Williston, Essex, SGNL Print 46. This project included the upgrading of 18 signals in Williston and Essex on Route 15, 2A, and US 2. This work in phase 1 was coordinated with an additional effort in phase 2 and combined in order to, recognize some efficiencies in terms of design as well as bidding. And this project as well has been successfully completed. So that's really the summary for phase 1. There's still 2 projects, obviously, Colchester and Essex, that are ongoing. They're advanced in design. They just have some ancillary items that have been pretty challenging for each of those jobs, but we continue to progress through those and are optimistic and looking forward to getting those under construction. So moving on to phase 2 projects, the first one I'll talk about is also in Williston, 5500 Print 14. This is a project at the intersection of US 2, Trader Lane, and Helena Drive, and will include a new signal installation along with some bike ped improvements and capacity improvements at the intersection. The town has taken the lead in terms of some right-of-way acquisition and design services, and will actually be assisting with the oversight of construction. Our project manager has been in close contact with the town, and it sounds as though the right-of-way process is very close to complete, which should make construction in 2021 realistic. Stepping down, we have Colchester, 5600 Print 17. This is the project at the intersection of US 7 and Severance, and includes a new signal along with roadway widening, bike ped facilities, drainage improvements, and other miscellaneous items. Currently, we're working on some environmental permitting, as well as a thorough analysis of the existing kind of subservice utilities that'll help out to minimize design impacts as we move through the process. So right now, right away has not begun on that. That's really the next phase. So currently we're anticipating that project in 2024. Stepping down, Essex, we have a project at the intersection of Route 15 and Sand Hill Road. And this project will install a new signal along with some minor realignment and capacity improvements, as well as pedestrian facilities. So this project is in the design phase, and actually the last remaining component is a waterline relocation routing, and the town is actively working on that component. We anticipate that this project will be advertised in later 2022, with major activities in 2023. The next project on the list is Essex 5300 Prin 14. And this project included some roadway widening, pedestrian and bicyclist improvements, and streetscape improvements on Vermont Route 15. This project is substantially complete with the exception of some railroad highway crossing work that was actually postponed from that initial construction and will be constructed as part of or in conjunction with the Crescent Connector work, as it is similar work and there could be some efficiencies in cost as well. So jumping down the list, we have additional transit projects from Williston to Burlington and Jeffersonville to Burlington, and those were incorporated both into full routes in FY18. Williston, Essex, this is the project I referenced, combining efforts for phase 1 work and phase 2 work. And that project has, again, successfully been completed. So jumping down to phase 3, and just in general, these are the projects that are really kind of they're not quite as far along as phase 1 and phase 2 projects, with the exception of a couple that I'll mention. So first on the list, we have Williston, which is 5500 Prin 18. And during the CERC alternative process, this was really defined into 4 phases. Phase 1 was a new shared use path that effectively progressed through the exit 12 interchange and also included a little bit more capacity on 2A. And this project is currently in development. Right-of-way plans are complete, and the design team has met with all impacted property owners. Our schedule anticipates construction in 2023, but I will say that our design team was very encouraged by the receptiveness of the property owners. So there is the real possibility that this one can move through the right-of-way phase at a faster pace. The remaining 3 phases of this job are candidates and have not progressed into design yet. So candidate effectively means that there is no schedule or funding defined for the job. So staying in Williston, we have 5500 Prin 17, and this is a project that included safety improvements along 2A from Industrial Ave to River Cove Road, along with improvements to the intersection of 2A, Industrial, and Mountain View. And design work is ongoing, and we are starting the right-of-way process right now. Currently, we're anticipating that this would be advertised in 2023 with primary construction in 2024. The next 3 projects on the list are all locally managed projects that incorporate bike ped improvements in Williston. And all 3 of these projects are candidate projects, which again mean that funding and schedule have not been defined. In Essex, we have 5400 Prin 10, and this is the project at the intersection of 117 and North Williston Road. For this project, we'll be installing a new traffic signal along with capacity improvements at the intersection. It's anticipated that this project will be advertised for and begin construction in calendar year 22. The next 2 projects on the list also in Essex. One is on North Williston Road, which was some hazard mitigation associated with the seasonal flooding, as well as shared use path along Vermont 15. Both of these projects are candidate projects and currently do not have funding defined. We're getting to the end of the list, I promise. In Essex, we have 5400 Prin 11. So this project is incorporated improvements to the intersection of Vermont 15 and Susie Wilson, Vermont 15 and Susie Wilson and Kellogg, and widening along Susie Wilson Road. So this project is in kind of an advanced scoping stage, and we're at a point where it's primarily complete, and we're working with the town right now, essentially identifying the areas that we need feedback from them in order to progress from scoping to design. So that will be going to the town shortly. And it's anticipated that, just with the timing of some other projects in the area, that we would look to advance or break out and advance the Vermont 15 Susie Wilson Road intersection as a standalone project, just for some efficiencies with ancillary work that will be ongoing. So jumping down to Colchester, 5600 Prin 19. This is the improvement along Vermont 2A, which includes widening and intersection improvements at Mill Pond Road and East Road. And this project is currently in scoping. And this past year, we've completed our environmental assessment. We've completed a full survey and have base plans, and are intending to meet with the community, hopefully in November, to discuss some of those findings and next steps. So we anticipate completing scoping on this project by the end of 2021. Also in Colchester, 5600 Prin 20. This project includes improvements to the Prim Road, West Lakeshore Drive intersection. Design is progressing, and it's anticipated that it would be ready for advertisement in fall of 21, with primary construction in 22. And then the last kind of infrastructure project we have is 5600 Prin 21, also in Colchester. And this is work at the Blakely Road, Laker Lane intersection, and was under construction in 2020. The last two projects on the list are transit jobs, and Milton, Colchester, Burlington. That was completed and implemented. And the last project on the list was providing service to upcoming parking rides. And so that one is actually pending the completion of the Williston parking ride. So that is the CERC alternative projects with a very high level, quick rundown of kind of where we stand. There are a couple more projects in the region that I just wanted to touch on briefly before I turn it over to Michelle. And I know time's running short for us, but I'll move quickly because I know these might be of interest to folks on the call as well. In Colchester, we have a project at the Exit 17 interchange, and this project's progressing pretty well. We have right-of-way plans are in that process. The project, if you're not aware, includes improvements to both the ramp intersections along with the 2-7 intersection, and also includes new bridges over the interstate. So it's a major project, but it has been moving pretty well in that we have environmental permits and are progressing with right-of-way. We have a 502 hearing that is scheduled for November 12th, and we're currently hoping for construction to begin in 2022. And the last really two projects that I wanted to bring up, we have a paving project or a reclaim slab removal project that is in development on US Route 2 in Richmond. And concurrently with the startup of design, our survey team is also documenting historic right-of-way through the area. And, for people on the call, it's caused a fair amount of confusion in terms of how the two efforts kind of work together, or really the fact that they are separate. They're separate efforts. They're both being performed by the agency, but one does not influence the other. So there's a lot of misinformation that we are going to be working with the community and the RPC to try to get that message out in terms of what is happening with the project, what is happening with the survey, and how those two things interact and also are separate. The last thing I also wanted to mention was just to bring up the Winooski Burlington Main Street Bridge. I know that there has been the scoping effort that has been completed, and the bridge is still in good condition. And I know that the municipalities were working to investigate the possibility of seeking federal earmark or grant to advance the project. However, I believe that's been delayed a little bit with COVID and different efforts. So, that's still on the radar, and we're intending to work with the RPC as we move through that. So that's really what I had. I know that Michelle has a few things to kind of wrap up our presentation, touch on a few more projects and general items, and I'll turn that over and I'll hang around for questions after.
Thank you, Jesse. So continuing on with a couple of project updates, I wanted to brief you on the Amtrak service to Burlington. Vermont Rail Systems is currently working on moving the track in front of Main Street Landing this fall. So if you're down on the waterfront, you will see activity. And additionally, VTrans is going to have an early work package out this fall for the College Street crossing. There are some utilities that need to be moved before the track work can begin next summer. Then next spring and summer, we're going to be working on the platform as well as the College, King, and Maple Street project areas. The King Street crossing will be done actually a bit in the spring and then some in the fall to reduce the impact to the Lake Champlain Transportation Company's ferry service and their dock activities there. The rail yard work will also be underway next summer. That's where the final storage location for the train was determined to be after much anguish and effort on many parties' behalves. And then switches will also be installed next summer and fall. The Burlington Bike Path, which is going to be relocated as part of this project, is going to have their effort coincide with the work that's going on next summer. So you'll see a detour for the bike path during that phase of time. All of this work is expected to be completed by the late fall or early winter of next year so that we can begin to work with Amtrak for their crew qualifications in that area. And then we hope to be able to start the service in early 2022. So things are really progressing at this point. Also in that area of Burlington, the Rail Yard Enterprise Project, which was a multi-year effort under a planning and environmental linkages advanced scoping study that has been completed. And we very much appreciate the support from Eleni for her leadership of this project. And we are working closely with the city to determine when this project will be advanced to preliminary engineering. So hopefully that information will be coming out in the next few months. The Champlain Parkway, also a project managed by the city, and their consultants are currently working on responses to comments from the limited scope draft supplemental environmental impact statement. And they're currently also putting finalization of the final supplemental EIS and the record of decision. The railroad agreements and the Act 250 preemption processes are now complete. And according to the current schedule that the city is maintaining, we hope to see that project advertised in January of 2021. So that's coming right up. A couple of other process activities we're working on that are close to your heart include the VTrans project prioritization effort. This has been a multi-year effort to standardize and sort of bring into the 21st century our project prioritization process so that all regions across the state are utilizing the same tools and examination processes for prioritization to harmonize with the efforts of the agency and to hopefully begin to have a pipeline for new projects as we get past some of these major historic projects that have really taken up the bandwidth of the budget for many years. Christine Ford has been a key member of the team working on this effort and designing it. And AOT will work with the RPCs to testify before the transportation committees this winter regarding this new process beginning in March. All of the RPCs will receive the paving, roadway, and traffic and safety projects to prioritize using the new system. We're having to group the assets in moving them forward as we develop the structure for the analysis of each of the asset types. And then over the summer of 21, the RPCs will use this new system to prioritize the projects for the FY23 capital program, which will be sort of the next one up for legislative review following next summer in the 2022 legislative process. We'll also identify any refinements that are needed for this new system. I think we finally realized that we need to just start using it and move forward and make adjustments that are needed as we go along. And so that will be occurring throughout this process. Then during the fall of 21, AOT will use all of the inputs from the RPCs and from our technical analysis of the assets to develop the final governor's recommended budget for FY23. So that's the status of that. Want to talk for a minute about livability in downtown and village centers. As businesses and communities began to work to expand use of the highway right-of-way for outdoor dining, events, and other social distancing and open air activities to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus, VTrans worked closely with the Agency of Commerce to support these efforts and has recently adopted a new guidance document for demonstration projects in the state highway right-of-way. As many of you recognize and your communities may experience this, our state highways oftentimes will traverse a village or a downtown area, and we want to make sure there's a way to collaborate when possible and make sure that communities get the support they need for projects they are interested in undertaking. This has been a natural evolution from the work we were undertaking with the Agency of Commerce through the Better Connections program to provide communities with ideas and pathways to test various uses of streetscapes prior to investing resources in advancing permanent projects. So that's really been a great advancement since the coronavirus crisis has set upon us. Lastly, I'll just talk a minute about equity and inclusion. As organizations across the state and country are doing, the state of Vermont, including the Agency of Transportation, is taking a deeper examination of our practices and policies to assure that we're considering the impacts of our projects, our programs and policies, and what those impacts may be on diverse, marginalized, or underrepresented racial and ethnic groups that encounter our projects and programs. And through Executive Order 0220, Governor Scott formed the Vermont Racial Equity Task Force in May of this year, which has recently directed the governor's cabinet to begin application of an equity impact analysis tool across state government programs. Our agency adopted a public involvement guide in 2017, which was modeled after the CCRPC public participation plan. And the updated agency guide applies an in-depth approach to public engagement for all phases of our plans and projects through from scoping through construction, including the use of an equity impact tool and data sets to determine how to best plan for and engage potentially impacted underrepresented communities. And while this guide provides us with a starting framework, there is more that we can do, and we'll be dedicating staff resources to examine all of our processes, programs, investments, including investments made through grants and contracts to assure that parties implementing projects and programs with state and federal funding that we administer are espousing and advancing racial equity principles and practices through the use of these public funds. So there's a lot to learn, a lot to investigate, but we are embracing and looking forward to understanding what we don't know and coming up to speed and presenting better opportunities as we move forward. So that closes my responses. And I'd like to turn it back over to Chair O'Brien for moderating the question and answer period.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Secretary Flynn. Did you have something else you wanted to add, Secretary Flynn?
No, I'm
Or you
good,
want
Mike.
to-
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll take questions. I think the best way to do it is turn your cameras on if you can and raise your hand. I'll recognize you. I saw Jeff Carr had his hand up while Jesse was talking. So Jeff.
My question was answered, Jesse, by Amy. We're going to get a copy of the circle alternative spreadsheet. I just wanted everybody to know that Elaine is here. So I'm moving to alternate, and Elaine will be the rep for the town of Essex outside the village.
Okay. Anyone else have a question or comment? While people are thinking of it, I will ask, oh, Charlie, you do. Sorry.
Catherine does first.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I hope this is appropriate. I don't know. It took up most of the select board meeting last day, and it had to do with a accident not that long ago where a young girl was killed. And the one of our residents has taken up a petition and actually interacted with Secretary Flynn to be able to get a crosswalk put in that area. And we certainly appreciate that opportunity to do that across 15. The issue is, and we heard a lot about it in our select board meeting, is that we were denied having a flashing pedestrian, pedestrian activated flasher there. And the townspeople really want to have one. So what would be the process to go through and make sure, see how we could get one approved?
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. That certainly was a tragedy, and I recall the outreach from the citizen, I believe, who lives up the hill. I forget the name of that road. Yeah. And I spoke with Chief Engineer Wayne Simmons about that. I've come to learn over the years in many locations where crosswalks have been requested or inquired about, that the agency, for many engineering and safety reasons, and I believe perhaps also compliance with MUTCD, and certainly Jesse can correct me, or Elaine or anyone else if I misspeak, but we need to be able to direct a person from someplace to someplace specific. And at that location, we'd be directing somebody almost across the street to the guardrails before they get to the lawn by the JCAT. So, but we're empathetic to what occurred. Chief Engineer Simmons told me there's a program, I believe there's a project, and Jesse can probably help me. I believe there's a project programmed to run through that area, including up through near Joe's Snack Bar. And when I spoke to Wayne about this, maybe 3 weeks ago, we were going to get back with the town, and we were going to let the town know that I believe we'd be willing to listen to some modifications to that project, Catherine, that might include some of the devices you're talking about. And I can't promise that, but my understanding was we were going to re-engage with Jericho in light of what happened, and be willing to listen to some more things that we might be able to put into that project. I don't have the timing of that project at the tip of my tongue, though.
Yeah, it's a multimodal pathway project that will cross near Joe's Snack Bar, which also, people were very concerned about. So if we can,
Right.
do something that gets it in that area, that would be useful as much as anything.
Right. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the area. I knew Joe for years, Joe and Marilyn, been over there a lot of times. I've been to the Jericho Cafe. I am familiar with the area. Sadly, I think specific to that accident, a crosswalk, given the circumstances of the accident, wouldn't have perhaps prevented what occurred. And I know you're not suggesting that, but yet there's a case to be made for something like a crosswalk or a beacon to inform a motorist, especially like that individual who wasn't from the area, that they're entering more of a village area. So the answer is, I believe we're re-engaging with Jericho to understand if we could perhaps improve the project that's coming.
Yeah, just to give you a heads up, you'll probably get a petition from the citizenry too about something else regarding the.
I'm sorry, about what else? I didn't catch the end of it.
I said it's a petition from the citizenry as well as the select board regarding the speed limit through there.
So let me help you. Don't bother with the petition. Have your select board write a letter to the agency requesting that we lower the speed limit, and it would be taken up by the traffic committee, which I chair.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be flip about a citizen petition, but we can't act just on a petition of the citizens. We have to act on a request by the body of jurisdiction. So if the select board in Jericho writes a letter to the agency and has a specific request, like for example, you want to start at a particular mile marker to a particular place, then what we do is our Traffic Safety Operations Bureau goes out. They do some engineering work. They'll do some radar feedback. They actually run radar. They get the 85th percentile of speed by the motorists that go through there, and they'll make a recommendation to the traffic committee based on the request of the town. And then we will hear that at an upcoming traffic committee hearing.
Now, does because the citizenry also had started the petition, would that even give more credence to it, or does it matter whether they, get it to you or not?
Well, certainly, I think it gives credence, and what I would suggest would be that you could certainly have the select board, include a petition.
Okay.
But my only message was we couldn't act only on a petition.
That's what we figured, that the select board had to do something, but but since they had already talked about it, we wanted to follow up with what they, whether it was useful or not. Thank you very much.
The petition. Oh, you're welcome. And I would just finish by saying the petition might be to petition the select board to write the letter, and the citizens say that they're in support of the select board writing the letter requesting a lowering of the speed limit.
Okay, that's good.
And then you'll be informed of when the hearing occurs. And anybody from Jericho, from the select board to citizens can appear. We've had 2 now virtually. They've gone pretty well, actually. We used to hold them in person. Of course, we don't now.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Jesse, I did have one question when you're going through your presentation. I thought I saw, it might be number 13, multi-use path from Essex to Winooski on Route 15. But you, I don't know if I missed it because I fell asleep or if you passed over it.
I put you to sleep, Charlie. Okay. So in Essex, as a phase 3 job, we do have a shared use path that's intended to extend along 15 from Old Stage Road to Essex Way. I think that's what you're referring to.
No, no, actually, it's for a long time. There's been discussion of a path along Route 15 from Essex Junction to Winooski, and I thought I saw it on your list, but
oh, I did skip right over that, didn't I? Colchester to Essex. Okay, so that is actually a phase 2 project. So this is basically from Lime Kiln to Susie Wilson, and this was actually one we had good news on. So we advertised that this fall. And while it's not awarded yet, we have received bids back. So we're going through the bid analysis process, and that should be constructed this upcoming season.
So since I've been out of the loop for a couple of years, I think initially it was going to go to the Winooski City line. Did that get changed somewhere along the way?
Yeah, so I believe the limits are from Lime Kiln to Susie Wilson. I'm not sure on the origination, but I don't think we've had any major modifications of scope since we've developed it.
Okay.
The original scoping document did go to the Winooski line, but that was like 10 years ago. Christine.
Yeah. Christine, yes.
So it's a 3-phase project that had the first phase was from the Winooski line to Lime Kiln. The second phase, Lime Kiln to Susie, and the third phase was Susie to West Street Extension. So it's phase 1 that is going to construction right now, and the other phases are still in scoping.
And I'm sorry,
And the
phase
other
one.
phases have some more challenges in terms of right of way.
And phase one was Winooski City line to Lime Kiln.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, yeah, Bard.
Secretary Flynn and staff, thanks for coming today. Bard Hill from the town of Richmond and currently Vice Chair of the Select Board. More comment than a question. So I recognize, sort of the bottom of our list that we discussed today is the repaving on Route 2, which is by our standards a huge project, and presumably by your standards a large project. So I just in advance, thanks for working with the town on our shared goals and interests. And specific to right of way, I think we'd be helpful with some of those things as we move into sort of what right of way and where is construction going to take place, and the right of way versus construction. I'll say in our town, I've run into on our town roads, significant misunderstandings among residents about what they own and what the right of way means or does not mean. So I think we have a shared interest beyond Route 2. We've run into that in other areas. So I just offer to the degree we can be helpful, not only as you move into designing, but some of that sort of public interface with our citizens about right of way. We're very interested in supporting you in that.
I appreciate that, Bard. And I fully anticipate that we will take you up on that, because, this is, some of the things we're hearing, just comments that are coming in, just it's really far off of where we want to be and the message we want to get out there. So we do need to work to fix that. We're not intending to completely disrupt the village setting of Richmond, and that's not the intent of this job, and it won't be the scope of this job. So we'll work to get that message out, Mark.
Understood. And we actually have a meeting set up tomorrow with some folks from VTrans to talk about that. Some of the issues, we put that on the agenda and talk about next steps perhaps on that as well.
Yeah, so I think Matt's meeting with you, Matt Bogacek. Yep. So he's our project manager for the paving job, and he'll do a good job of conveying what the job is, the things that we can look at to, accommodate needs within the job, and things we can't as well. And hopefully coming out of that, we could have a game plan for how to tackle some of the more global issues.
Thank you.
And I might just add, Mr. Hale, that the Richmond residents pay attention, because I've had more outreach personally from citizens of Richmond than I have in 4 years in this job from any other community regarding any right-of-way work around Vermont that we've done. So Jesse mentioned this earlier. There may be some sort of a miscommunication between the two projects, but I too appreciate you and the select board's efforts as we work to perhaps sort out the conversation a little more clearly for everybody to understand. So thank you.
Well, it's good to know while we're 2.5% of the county population, we make ourselves heard, I guess.
Well, very effectively, sir.
Charlie.
Mike? Yeah, just two things. Michelle, you mentioned the equity work and the assessment tools that you're working on. If we can be any kind of guinea pig in that process, we are very interested in the same work. You kind of reminded me that I should be talking to you about this more, so that we're not duplicating efforts and maybe can build upon each other's efforts. So let us know how we can partner on that work. And I think even more immediately, I think in the next couple months, we're trying to figure out how to do some of that assessment with regards to the 89 study.
Yes.
So, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if that can be the first guinea pig, we're going to be probably pretty ready in the next couple months to figure out something to assess the equity impacts.
That sounds good. We're learning as we go.
Yep. Thank you. And then a question, I think, for Jesse, and I may have missed this if it was on your list, but it may be a municipal project. I think, is there a project to reconstruct the circulator pavement, get rid of the concrete in Winooski. And I'm part of my question is not just if there's a project, but also how is the construction schedule coordinated with Exit 16, and how's that going to work? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So yes, the class 1 paving job. So that's what you're referring to in terms of the concrete job. So that it's not a CERC alternative job, but
No.
it is one that is under development. And as you mentioned, we've worked pretty closely with Winooski throughout design to kind of identify which portions of the concrete make sense to remove, because it was installed for a reason. You know, there's a lot of trucks and there's grade there, and there's concern with the longevity of, you know, whatever is applied. So, you know, we worked closely and made sure that there was concurrence between us and Winooski, and we did identify certain portions of that would be removed. And, you know, with regards to the coordination, I believe that the class 1 concrete job is on target for next season. So there wouldn't be that direct conflict between the DDI and the class 1 job.
Okay, so that'll happen in 21, and the DDI's substantial work won't really start till 22.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
As a follow-up, Jesse, does that go from the railroad bridge down to the Burlington Bridge around the circulator? Do you know?
The removal?
That project, and I asked because there is a Main Street revitalization reconstruction project on the table as well.
Yep. So that project, so we have been coordinating with all the projects. So I believe that one's managed by VHB, if I'm correct, as your consultant. So we have been working with all the players of all the projects in the region so that they do play as well as they can together. You know, it's obviously, you know, it's an urban area, so there's challenges no matter what, but we're doing everything we can to coordinate all the jobs. With regards to the work that's included, so this project would pave all of the class 1 jobs. It's going to be broken into two projects, one that would be specific to concrete work and one that would be specific to hot mix, just because it is such different types of work that it makes sense to have specific contractors who are used to that work performing it.
Thank you. Any other questions from folks? I don't see any.
Well, I can
So,
ask a quick question, if you don't mind, Mike. And Secretary
Is that
Flynn,
Chris? Yeah.
yeah, just a general global thing of where Vermont stands with the bridges and the culverts. That would be appreciated. And maybe if you drill down to Chittenden County, but I think overall we'd be curious.
Thank you. I will tell you that the bridge deficiency ratings have improved tremendously over the last decade. I don't have on the top of my head the actual numbers, but we are closer to the top of the list in the country as far as condition of our bridges and our pavement for that matter. And as far as culverts go, I'll tell you that I think they're a concern, quite frankly. You know, when we saw what occurred up at exit 18 in Georgia, every culvert pretty much in our entire interstate system is original. So that means they're probably a half a century old, if not older. And so those are a concern. We had a sinkhole on 89 North down near the rest area just north of White River in the summer of 2017 that developed on a weekend. And then we had this sinkhole in Georgia that developed as a result really of the Halloween storm. So the culverts we're finding, I think many of them are reaching certainly the corrugated ones are reaching the end of their expected life cycle. That is an issue for us. The other thing I would tell you that once we complete some of these legacy projects that we call them at the agency, for example, like the Middlebury Tunnel, the Grand Isle North Hero Drawbridge, the new bridges being constructed on I-91 in Rockingham, these massive, expensive projects, we look to the short term after that as being many more smaller projects to do culvert replacement, upsizing for a lot of reasons, including climate change, and also projects that will put, we hope, many smaller contractors to work. Only so many contractors in the Northeast can do jobs like the Middlebury Tunnel or the drawbridge in Grand Isle. So culverts are certainly a concern. There's no question about it, just because of their current condition. Also, the effects, as I said, of these 100-year storms that seem to happen every 2 or 3 years now.
Okay, anything else?
I just want to say thank you to the agency, and that was a lot of projects that they covered, and I don't think that should be lost on us. There's a lot of investment underway in Chittenden County of all kinds, and we appreciate you following up on the Circ alternative process and continuing to move those projects. And just thank you for the partnership and all the work you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Secretary Flynn and Jesse and Michelle, for coming tonight and giving us all this great information. We appreciate it. And Chris, you're welcome to join us anytime. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know. I'll ask Secretary Flynn or Michelle or anyone. Do you have any last comments you want to make? Or are we all set?
Well, I would just say again, thank you for the partnership. It truly is valued, and we don't construct anything alone at the agency. I mean, I believe strongly in partnerships. I believe strongly in strong industry partners as well. We can't construct anything without partners. So we have an excellent team who can design and who can build, lay out the plans for projects. But we have to have this local partnership that we have with you, and we have to have a partnership with very strong industry contractors who are successful and profitable to deliver projects to Vermonters as well. So again, I appreciate all the work that you do and the help that you give us. And I know our team does as well. So thank you. Appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you. So the next item is the I-89 2020 or 2050 study. I'm sorry. And I know that Secretary Flynn, you're going to hang around for this. And I don't know if Michelle is and Jesse, but you're more than welcome to. And, after that, you can stay on for the rest of this wonderful meeting, or you can sign off. I'll leave that up to you. Okay. So the I-89 2050 study update, Charlie?
Yeah, Eleni is going to cover this. So I'll let her run with it.
Yeah, I would like to get control of the screen now so I can share the presentation. All right, this one, share. Can you see that?
See nothing yet.
We're looking at like a double screen, Eleni.
Let me just try to just put it on. Okay, let's try this again. If I turn this off, no. Can you tell me what you see now?
Yeah, we're still seeing a double screen, a nice landscape, and then your PowerPoint. You may need to stop sharing and then kind of reboot it to one screen.
Yeah, I mean, it was one screen. I just turned the other, so let's try this. Okay.
Sure. Did everybody else see what I saw? I just want to make sure it's not just me. Okay.
I did.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's try this one. Is that better?
Yeah, I think we're closer. Yep. You just need to center it up.
Okay, I'm centering it up. How's it looking now? It's just so hard because I can't really see what you see. So
It looks. You're in presenter mode. Can you go to slideshow mode or something?
Yeah, this is a slide mode now. So is that better?
Well, we
just-
see your, we're seeing presenter mode. So we see your next slide and your current slide.
Yeah, so I don't see that. I see it on as a slide deck. So that is interesting. So
As long as you don't have any notes that say anything that not good, then you're
anything bad, I don't think so, but who knows? Maybe I was writing for my new puppy,
I was going to say, I think you can proceed with this. We can follow it.
You can follow it. Okay, so I will just one more thing. What about now? Is that better now?
That's it. We've got it. Perfect.
Wow, amazing technology. Anyway, hello everybody. I'm just here to give you an update, a quick update on the I-89 study, where we are right now. And so I'm just going to spend just like a minute or two on the overview and the vision, goals, and objectives, where we are at this point. I'll remind everybody, because we were at the board meeting back in June to give you an update of where we were. And at that point, we talked a lot about the first round of the interchange evaluation. And that phase ended with kind of an action by the advisory committee, which I will go over. And now we're in the midst of the second round of the interchange evaluation, and then I'll finish with next steps. You have seen this graphic numerous times. This basically shows our scope for this project and our timeline. You can see that we are now kind of like really kind of in the midst of like the second round in task 4. We are evaluating interchanges in Chittenden County. We did the first round of evaluation, and we are now in the second round of evaluation. I mentioned the vision and goals and objectives. You have seen this in the past. We actually have refined this since the last time you saw it, based on a lot of comments that we got from the advisory committee, mainly. All this information is on the I-89 and Vision website. So please go ahead and review this. As you know, we develop, goals for safety, livability, and sustainable and healthy communities, mobility and efficiency, environmental stewardship and resilience, economic access and vitality, and system preservation. Those are goal areas. And under each goal, we develop objectives that is going to help us basically achieve our goals. We also have a draft vision statement, and it all says draft for now for a reason. So I just want to point to this introductory paragraph that we have here, that it was discussed at our meetings quite a bit, at our committee meetings. And we agree that because of the significant uncertainty that is happening in the world, like the lasting effects of COVID, we have no idea how it's going to affect transportation, land use. Also, we have no idea what's happening with the technology, autonomous vehicles coming up. So recognizing that, we basically agree that these vision, goals, and objective statements will stay draft. And they will be reassessed, periodically, to make sure that, they are basically addressing any evolving situation that we have and conditions that we have on the ground. So just to remind everybody that the first round of the interchange screening that we did back in the spring and summer and early summer, we looked at 8 interchanges in Chittenden County. You can see the interchanges there on the slide on the right. I just want to mention that you don't see exit 14 interchange in this list of interchanges, just because we decided that from the very beginning that exit 14 is one of the major issues that there are major issues with exit 14: safety, congestion, just bike and ped connectivity, and a lot of other things. That interchange was going to be included in the second round of interchange screening anyway. so we could not include it in the first screening. So, but anyway, we developed a criteria, we developed metrics for basically evaluating these interchanges. And these are the results of the first round of the interchange screening. So basically, exit 13 hybrid, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. I'll show you a schematic of it. Exit 13, just the U-turn on 189 that actually makes the exit 13 interchange kind of a full interchange, not quite. It is full, but it's also not the most efficient one, as well as exit 12. Those three interchanges score the highest. And they show the best regional benefits, transportation benefits, and especially in the urban core of the county. Exits 10A and 17N in Bolton and Milton, respectively. They had some very, passionate local advocates. When we analyzed those two, we found that there were localized transportation benefits, and they were mostly economic drivers for those areas. But the advisory committee, so we presented these results to the advisory committee back in late June. And the advisory committee suggested to took action to advance interchanges 12B, 13, and 14 for the second round of the interchange evaluation. They also asked us to consider the 10A and 17N, the Bolton and Milton interchanges, for the second round if the RPC had funding and staff resources to do that. We had meetings internally, and we determined that this fiscal year we don't have any resources to actually work on these interchanges, and that we are proposing to actually include them into the mix with for the fiscal year 22 UPWP for the committees and the board's kind of consideration. So we presented this to the advisory committee at their meeting in September, and they okay that approach. So we are now, as I said, in the secondary, we are looking at the second round of the interchange evaluations. And one of the major things that we are looking at is how secondary land use growth might happen if we have these major interchange transportation improvements to the I-89 corridor. And we're talking only now about 12B, 13, something at 13, and 14. So one way of doing that is basically, and that's something that is being done across the country and the world actually, is to convene a panel of experts to talk about the possible secondary land use effects of these major infrastructure improvements. And we did that. We convened a Delphi panel, a panel of experts in July. And you can see who was on the panel. So we had a great panel that came together and talked about possible land use growth, due to these improvements. The panel met back in July, and then I'll show you in a second a summary of what we heard from the panel. And the fourth bullet down just talks about what secondary growth analysis is. When we talk about secondary growth analysis and secondary growth land use, we're talking about either land use that will be relocated from other places of the county in that area of improvement, but also we are talking about new growth, something that, if you put an interchange at 12B, then a company that wasn't planning to come to Chittenden County would come to Chittenden County in that area because of that improvement. We, during the Delphi panel discussion, we explored three scenarios. The first one was the exit 14. One of the scenarios was to relocate the northbound off-ramp through the University Mall, and I do have a schematic in a second that I can show you. The panel basically indicated that if we do that, we might see a modest commercial growth around the University Mall area. And in the right, you can see a table that talks. It provides the new and the relocated households and employees in the area if those improvements are made. The second scenario was about some interchange enhancements at exit 13 and some minor at 14, as well as possibility of widening the interstate between exits 14 and 15, having 3 lanes each direction between just that segment of I-89. And the panel decided that those improvements will only basically bring about like a slight residential growth in the Burlington area and some north. And you can see that we had like the scenario 2 just talks about 100 new households in the kind of in the downtown residential area and 30 households in Franklin County. As you probably figure out, exit 12B as a new interchange basically had the most significant growth, both commercial and residential at the close proximity to the 12B, but also had some very modest regional growth, household growth in the area, mainly south of 12B. So the results of the Delphi panel will be, as you see, they were translated into data, household and employees that they will be added to our model, and we're going to be running some scenarios with those. We also developed some interchange concepts, which I'm going to talk about. We are moving forward with 2 concepts at exit 14 and 2 at exit 13, and of course a new interchange at exit 12 at the 116 overpass. And starting with that one, this is exit 12B. As you can, I don't know if you can see my cursor, I think this is, the interstate 116. We started so VHB is the prime contractor or consultant that we're working with. And they started with the scoping study that we did 10 years ago, but since then, there was a lot of development that happened, so they had to kind of move some of the ramps to actually avoid the taking of buildings. So this is based on that scoping study, but slightly modified to avoid structures. This is the hybrid of 13. This is the U-turn I was talking about at the, between the eastbound and westbound 189. They're also we're adding some northbound ramps to basically to complete this exit 13 interchange area. So that's the hybrid. And the most exciting one is we are also looking at what we call a single point urban interchange design for exit 13. That is truly a full service interchange at 13. This is not in Vermont, as you probably realize. This is from another state. I'm not quite sure where, but it gives you a pretty good, clear idea and picture of what it is, right? So a single point urban interchange, or SPUI, is basically, it concentrates all movements into a middle kind of intersection. It's a massive intersection, but it's more efficient because it just concentrates all the movements there. And this is something, and this slide right here shows you the concept at the 189 kind of area. So here, I mean, the important things are like this red, the red indicates like ramps that they're going away, they're being removed. If a spill is going to happen here, And then one of the most important changes is that the eastbound 189, which right now is right here, moves close to the westbound 89, so you can bring everything together, all the movements together right here, which provide us with a lot of possibility of, some possibilities of what to do with, the facilities, especially this facility, the facility here that it's going to go away, the eastbound 189. But this is something that we're going to be evaluating. We're going to come back to you with results on this. This is, we also have two concepts for exit 14. The one on the left is a much simpler concept. So basically this concept is we're removing the existing northbound off-ramp. As we all know, it's very problematic because it's just so close to the Dorset Street intersection, one of the highest volume intersections. And this area, it is very difficult to figure out the operational improvements in that area because of the proximity here. So if we remove that and we we relocate the northbound off-ramp to align with Garden Street through the University Mall, aligning with Garden Street, or maybe possibly Market Street, like Garden, will connect all the way to Route 2. So you're going to have that nice connection to Route 2 and to the airport. So that's one concept. And also on this concept, we're adding a second northbound on-ramp over here. And then over here to the right, as you can see, we are moving forward with the full reconstruction scenario. We feel like probably that would be a DDI right now. But we are looking into it, and we'll come back with more information when we develop that. I believe that they went through the schematic last time around. I just added it again, just for the people maybe that they haven't seen this presentation before. We talked a lot about interchanges right now, but the truth is, like, we're still kind of into 1B right here at the very beginning. We spend a lot of time because it's such an important issue that we need to resolve. So right now, we are actually, we are right here into 1B, as I said. We're evaluating the 3 interchanges. And then out of that, we're going to get a recommendation either to move one full interchange forward, or some elements of interchanges. And that will be added to the mix with other improvements, corridor improvements that they're going to include multimodal improvements, transit, bike and ped, ITS, HOV lanes. And those, the combination of whatever elements from the interchange enhancements, as well as the corridor recommendations, they're going to be combined into 3 bundles. And we're going to evaluate those 3 bundles, and we're going to just come up with, the best bundle based on input, based on results, based on input from the committees as well as the public. And then we're going to establish an implementation plan. Again, here, this is an important point, is that because of the uncertainties that I talked before as we develop the vision and goal statements, and because of the uncertainties of what's going to happen to the travel, to the land use, to demographics, to a lot of stuff, what we are proposing is to establish triggers for major roadway capacity projects. So once we establish those triggers, if we reach the trigger, then we're going to move forward with implementation. Otherwise, we're not going to spend that money on that specific improvement. And then, of course, we are going to have the final, plan recommendations, as well as develop a monitoring system, so we can basically, connect it to the triggers that I just talked about. Almost to the end. I am not going to go through this in detail, but just to let you know that we are now, we developed metrics for the second round of interchange evaluation. But as you can see in this table, that's the kind of the middle column here. But we started also populating the column to the right, which is the corridor metrics, which some of them are still to be determined, but we're going to be actually developing those metrics as we go along. And you can see that we develop metrics under each objective, and we identify which metrics go under which one. And finally, the next steps, we're going to hopefully finalizing the second round of interchanges by December, hopefully maybe, late November if we could. And we're going to have a technical committee then when we finalize the results. And then we also planning to add another public meeting to the scope, even though we didn't have this to begin with, because we feel it's very important to communicate to the public the results from the interchange evaluations and what looks like it's a probable improvements that they're going to move forward for full evaluation in the bundles. We're also going to present this to the South Burlington City Council and, of course, the advisory committee sometime in January, February timeframe. And one of the most important thing, and I think Charlie and Michelle talked about this, is we need to do more to reach out to underserved and underrepresented populations. And we are trying to figure out as we go along, but I think it's very important for us to reach out to those communities before we develop any bundles, any recommendations for the I-89 corridor. So we're going to be working internally to put together an outreach plan for that sometime early 2021, January, February timeframe. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Thank you, Eleni. Before we open to questions, I just want to offer Secretary Flynn or Michelle or Jesse, anyone from VTrans, if they have thoughts that they wanted to share.
I would say that I think it's pretty interesting work. I was sort of taken with the exit 13 diagram. I'm not asking you to go back to it, Eleni, but it's a lot of moving parts there. And no, I think it's great. The vision for how to improve these intersections impresses me, and it's something I lack. I'm not an engineer. Yeah. No, that's something. And I think your ability to even think in concepts of 15 and 35 years from now is quite remarkable. So appreciate the work. And that's all I have to say. Thanks. I'll drop off shortly after this phase of the agenda, if you all don't mind.
Oh, thank you, Joe. We appreciate your coming.
Okay. All right. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
I would just add that this is an exciting time to be begin to lock down some of the improvements that we are going to need, because projects such as this will take a decade or two to develop once we receive recommendations from the agency and we undertake the NEPA process for these next stages of interstate improvements. These are going to be the next legacy projects that we will be working on. And in all likelihood, there may be, over the course of a 20-year period, there could be 2 or 3 of these types of legacy projects that we need to engage with. I'll be long gone, but I imagine Jesse will be, maybe chief engineer by then. Hard to say.
Well, thank you for that, Michelle. But I echo it. I do live in this area, so I'm familiar with the intersections, and the RPC and VHB have done a very good job of kind of progressing this and trying to progress it with so many contributors in a way that will be something that we can actually act on in the future. And that's exciting for me because these projects, if they are ours eventually, they're going to be fun to work on. So we're looking forward to that, and we appreciate the work that's being done.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again for joining us tonight. So good night. Anyone on the board have any questions or comments for Alani?
Great.
I guess not.
I guess not. I mean, all right. Thank you all, and we'll be back with more updates as we go along.
Great.
And I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is FTA Title VI program.
Yeah, so Emma will just really review this. You had a memo in your packet and a document. Emma?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to provide a bit of a background and overview of the draft FTA Title VI report that was included with your packet. So I'll try to quickly cover what this document is and why we've put it together. So the CCRPC receives FTA funding, which is mostly passed through Green Mountain Transit. And federal regulations require the CCRPC to submit reports to FTA to ensure that we're in compliance with Title VI. So that's what you're looking at today. This report or program gives an overview of the work we have done over the last 3 years, including specific projects that included tasks in their scopes of work or other actions taken to identify and include underrepresented minority or low-income individuals and communities. So we worked with a consultant that VTrans had been working with already, who assembled this program into the correct format for us. And then we customized it and fleshed it out based on our own work. So we have had the components of this program for many years. And by that, I mean the official Title VI complaint procedures, including an official complaint form, a designated Title VI contact, which is me, equity maps that are regularly updated and the like. But these were not assembled into a formal FTA Title VI program until this year. So, and one thing I do want to point out is that we do put together an annual Title VI report for VTrans and FHWA, which does not require board approval, but it includes a lot of the same information that's in this FTA report about the work that we're doing in our communities. So that a main difference, is that FHWA Title VI report is updated and submitted annually, whereas this FTA program needs to be updated every 3 years. So this one does offer a bit of a broader look at the work that we have done. And a final piece I just want to point out is that this current draft includes revisions recommended by the executive committee to specify that the executive director will notify the executive committee of any Title VI complaints. That was not in the previous draft, so we've incorporated it here. We have not had any ever, I believe, and certainly not within the time frame of this particular report, but having that process outlined and clarified is important. So we've incorporated that suggestion. And with that sort of quick, broad overview, I'll open it up. Brian Davis and I are the two primary staff who've put this together, and we're both here and happy to answer any questions or hear any comments or feedback.
Go ahead, Brian. Yeah.
Hi, thanks, I appreciate that. And I do want to point out that if you've read the document, it's fairly prescriptive. It's sort of formulaic, if you will. It doesn't get into really the heart of, I think, what RPC really wants to do in our work. And so when we update the public participation plan in the next 6 months or so, that's where we'll go into more detail about our specific efforts to engage different populations. So if you read this and you wonder why isn't it talking more about, the mission or the racial equity mission of the RPC and all the specific goals that we're trying to accomplish, it's because it's really following the format that FTA wants to see. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments for either Emma or Brian?
Just a big thank you. This is a comprehensive report. And even though it seems formulaic, it's got a lot of really excellent information in it, particularly about underserved populations in all of our towns. So thank you.
Do you guys like white supremacy? I like it.
Oh, we have a hacker.
Thank you, but yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Brian and Emma.
Yeah, why don't you
Thank
like
you.
white supremacy?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Anyone else on the board have any comments? Hearing or seeing none, we're looking for, it's an action item. We're looking for a motion to approve. So I'll wait for a
Is
motion.
this an MPO vote?
Moved.
Oh, hang on a second. Charlie, or is this a MPO item or is it a board?
Yeah, that's a good point. It is an MPO vote only. Thank you, Garrett. Apologies for not noting that on the agenda.
No worries.
Okay, so I think I heard a motion and a second. Can you repeat? Jim, you made the motion?
I motion to approve, yeah.
And who seconded?
I'll second.
Sharon? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please or signal aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Great, the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Emma and Brian.
Thank you.
Next item is one that we love every year, municipal dues. Charlie? Or are you going to throw
well, Forrest did all the work. I'll present it because we're recommending 0%. If it was going to be an increase in dues, Forrest would present it.
Thanks, Charlie.
Sorry, it's getting late. If you read the memo, you'll see Forrest kind of went through the math of what would have been the increase if we went by our typical formula. All right, that takes me a second just to dismiss.
Can we mute caller 2? I'm not sure who it is.
Oh, it's dismissed. Don't worry.
Thanks.
No, and now we got a caller 3. All right, somebody is having fun. So anyway, this is a motion to keep dues level because we do reapportion dues based on your grant list. There might be some small adjustment to your dues, but not anything significant. So we'll take a motion on that when you're ready.
Okay. So
Also moved.
Anyone have any? Oh, sorry. Garrett, is there a second?
I'll second.
Jim? Okay. Any questions, comments, discussion?
The gores have more than doubled since I started.
Yeah, but you don't live there anymore.
Details.
Jim?
Could you go over the detail about how there's a slight rise or drop, even though things are staying level?
Yeah, so we do it based on your share of the countywide equalized grant list. So if your town did more development than the average town, or had a higher than average increase in your grant list, your dues might go up a couple dollars, and a town that had less than the average might go down a couple dollars.
Okay. Ours went down. I was just trying to figure out why. And that
You're being subsidized by Winooski, that's why. Ours went up. Any other comments or questions? Hearing or seeing none, and I'll ask all those in favor of the motion, please say aye, or say or signal aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Amy? Yep. Okay, that motion passes. Next, we have, I'm just going to call it what it really is, Charlie, the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you. And I may get distracted dismissing this person who's having fun.
May I say you're really good on the quick hit there.
I'm trying, but it may distract me. So just quick things. It's also getting late. Budget, you'll see next month our audit report. Thank you to Forrest and Amy for all their work on that. We ended up a little bit in the black at FY20. And so knock on wood, I will say about that. And operationally, we are still primarily working from home. You'll notice I'm in the office, but that was mostly, well, entirely personal choice as we just downsized and we're now in a small apartment and there isn't as much room for me to be working from home. So here I am, and it's 4 minutes away.
I was going to say it's a long commute for you, right?
I know, yeah. I'm renting an apartment in Winooski, so I can literally roll or crawl to the office here. So I'm hoping I can crawl back. Any questions on what's going on in terms of our budget or operations? Sorry, I'll just pause there for a sec. Okay. Clean water service provider update. Sorry, I feel like we've been talking about this for a long time. You may remember the legislature passed in 2019 a new law to have clean water service providers work on natural resource projects to supplement what everybody's doing under different permits to achieve our clean water goals. We volunteered to be a clean water service provider for the Direct to Lake Basin a few months ago. DEC is still working on a pretty open and inclusive process in developing the draft rule. They are kind of in the final stages of that drafting. So sometime in the next couple months, there will be a formal rule out there for review. And they're trying to get it done, I would say by January, probably January, February timeframe. But it's going okay. We have a couple issues to work out with DEC in that rule. I guess one or two that give me a little bit of concern, but I'm hopeful that we'll work them out in the coming weeks. And then item C, most of you are aware because you've been getting invites from me that I've been going to your town and city or village council trustee meetings. Some are still being scheduled. If I haven't seen you yet, it's not because I don't love you. It's just somebody hasn't responded to my emails as quickly as somebody else. But just a real credit to the staff and just to the partnership between the municipalities and our staff. I always ask, how we're doing, kind of a customer service call, and really, very positive comments about how our staff are assisting towns. And so I appreciate the role you all play in that, in helping us have the best relationship we can be, which, there are sometimes we're dealing with difficult issues. Bard today. Sorry. Yeah, I could pick on somebody else a different day, but today was Bard's day. Sorry about that. Let me know though, if you have any feedback, of how to improve those things. I feel like sometimes our report is a little long, but for those that do read through it, they do seem to appreciate it. So I'm keeping it that way for now, but let me know if we should make some adjustments if you get any feedback on that. And then just a heads up, legislative breakfast, we're still planning early December. Next month at this meeting, we'll probably get into a deeper dive about topics for that conversation. I shouldn't say breakfast anymore. Legislative, I don't know, briefing or something we'll call it. So that's all I have. Any other questions for me or anything? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Committee liaison activities and reports are in your packet. Are there any questions or comments, updates that anyone wants to give on a committee? Okay, seeing none, future agenda topics. Charlie, I'm going to throw this at you.
All I've got is a legislative briefing so far for next month. There may be a couple other things. I think we had a town plan today was that an energy plan, Regina? I think for Heinsberg, I think. So that will probably be.
Yeah, Heinsberg Energy Plan. It is just at the Planning Commission public hearing stage. So it could be a number of months before it actually gets forwarded to you guys.
Okay, sorry. We don't have a lot else besides the legislative briefing, so maybe we'll just have a short meeting next month unless you have something else you would like to hear about.
Okay, if anyone has any topic they want to hear about, let Charlie know.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Members items, any or other business, any members items or other business? I guess not. So then I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone for coming. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone want to stay on and talk for a lot longer? Guess not. We are adjourned. Again, thanks everyone. See you next month.
Everybody.
And everyone.